Is it working? Yes, it's working. So hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics Fucking Again podcast. So this is actually the second post or the second video of today or the second episode of today. And I'm pretty pumped, and I'm also glad that I finished the actual book that I've been talking about today as well, which is, some kind of book that I would kind of not suggest to go through, but if you want to check it out, it's a book about marketing primarily, but also maybe even about morals and ethics at the end, because check it out and you can definitely then see what it is all about. This is so the book that I was discussing is one by Ryan Holiday. I do not remember the title again, I'm sorry, but I've made 2 episodes of this, so it's probably the whole thing is like an hour or something. So if you're listening to it, it's quite okay. I think an hour is still a lot, definitely, but it's not like it's so overwhelming or something. But yeah. Blah 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 blah. So we are going ahead with, and I still again with this book I forget the title. We're going through Feeling Good, which is the second part actually. So if you want to go through the first one, just search for Feeling Good, because I now just always implement the title and the author of the book into my descriptions. It got fairly easy to just understand and know what I'm going to talk about in these certain episodes. I might even should do it in the title and or in the thumbnail. Would actually also be some kind of good. Maybe even something small would actually be good and fine, because it doesn't matter if it's just pretty much in the description or just you can see it by watching the video, but you always have to just click on the video and go through it. And so therefore, if I just put it in the thumbnail, you just see it because you see it. But we actually got through a little bit. Even one of the most, one of the most significant, one of the most important parts of this book, which is the cognitive distortions, which is a complete list about how you can definitely or some kind of think about the reality in a different way, so that it is not actually the reality anymore, but something that you made up, and that's then the reason why you are feeling upset or you're feeling just terrible and. And also another things, it's not primarily about this one, but this was maybe even an example. So I do not actually remember them as well. So I should actually some kind of go through the last episode as well. But if you want to just go through the other stuff, go and check out the last episode or the first episode, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that you do not quite need it. But so we will go ahead with 3 crucial steps when you are upset. The first one is zero in on those automatic negative thoughts and write them down. I didn't actually know what they meant by zero in on those automatic negative thoughts. I kind of feel like, okay, that you should actually recognize them, or just should put them down and feel like, okay, I understand I have them, but this is nothing that I want to interact with, or this is nothing that I just want my body to feel like. And therefore I think the first step, which is also a thing that I pointed out all the fucking time in the last episode, is that you should actually recognize it and just be sure and conscious about what you're feeling and that you're feeling a certain feeling. It's not like that's obvious or something that's common sense, but a lot of people seem to struggle a little bit with actually just knowing what they're feeling, just kind of interpreting what they're feeling, and I'm just saying, okay, I'm actually feeling this right now, and this is because of that. So actually also knowing your triggers. So just do not interact, but some kind of realize your negative thoughts and write them down. The second point is read over the list of the 10 cognitive distortions, learn precisely how you are twisting things and blowing them out of proportion, which basically means what cognitive distortions you are using and in which way. And I think this is also another part of recognition, or recognizing that you are actually doing this. You are actually using those cognitive distortions subconsciously. And the third and last point is substitute a more objective thought that puts the lie to the one which made you look down on yourself. that puts the lie to the one which made you look down on yourself, which, I think basically means is a little bit complicated written, or complicatedly, if this word even exists, written, but I think you should just, take the pattern and, quite pretty much, take everything out of the equation, or of this certain pattern that's negative, and, some kind of, some kind of negative in a way that it's actually because, should do it like this, or should I? Oh, now I understand it. Like this, it's better. Should be better. Or even like this, actually. Yeah, I hope the microphone didn't make any noises or pretty awkward sounds. But I think they just actually mean, okay, you should first of all recognize it, write them down, see what you're doing and what you're doing wrong, and then actually taking everything out of this equation of just negativity and just, not the reality, and put the reality again in, so they actually change up the pattern again, change up that some kind of thought pattern that you just created for yourself, so that it is actually representing the reality again. So whether your critic is right or wrong, initially find some way to agree with him or her. Your feelings result from the meaning you give to the event and not from the event itself. And that's totally true. We just give, if subconsciously or consciously, just meaning to certain events, or certain scenarios, or even certain people. Which is, totally makes sense that your mother may be a pretty important and valuable person for you, because this is, I think, or at my point of view, just through biology like this, even though a lot of people just do not like their parents, or especially their father or mother, which also is, some kind of thing. But at my point of view, it just makes sense that you have just a connection with your parents. But this is actually the thing. The problem is that it is not as easy as just saying, okay, you just pretty much kind of, give meaning to the events and or scenarios and or the people. It is like this, or if subconsciously or consciously, it doesn't matter, but changing it up is another chapter. And it's definitely, at my point of view, very, very just difficult, because changing up certain patterns and certain connections and certain feelings and kind of associations with certain scenarios or whatever is pretty difficult. I don't know why, but it just feels like it. Just feels like, okay, if it just, okay. I'm just thinking that actually then your patterns in every other area of your life are also as complicated or difficult to change as the way you're feeling about certain things. I think this also some kind of has to do with, first of all, recognition, or recognizing that you're actually feeling a certain way when something appears, or something occurs, or something happens, or because of certain people, or whatever. And then probably through this, recognition, that you actually just either, even if it's, a good task, it could actually be a good one as well, that you actually emphasize it maybe, and or you just put it down and just look at it and be like, okay, I'm always quite feeling bad when I'm meeting this certain person, and why is it like this? I think, at my point of view, questions are such an essential part of life, and I think this is actually something I'm getting pretty philosophically or philosophical in my podcast, I think, and in general, a lot of things that I'm talking about and a lot of things I do have to do with are just some kind of philosophical. And I do understand, or I do know, that a lot of people are just thinking about philosophy like, this is just some crappy bullshit and it's not true and, whatever. But at my point of view, they're just so so intelligent and actually pretty accurate philosophers out there, or actually were there, like, Socrates and or Plato or Aristoteles, and, all these very, very intelligent and thoughtful people, which just, at my point of view, very, or pretty much changed how we all are thinking right now. If you just know them and if you just learn about them somewhere or whatever. But I think in general, changing the meaning you're giving to certain things has something to do with thinking about it and pretty much recognizing why you're feeling this certain way or why you're thinking about this thing in a certain way. And maybe some things get clearer and clearer so that you can actually kind of change it up or change your pattern up that is some kind of connected to this certain situation or this person or whatever. So irrational statements should rest on your assumption that you are entitled to instant gratification at all times. Okay, I didn't understand one single fucking word, but that's totally okay. At least you have. So the following 2 guidelines will help you to determine when your anger is productive and when it is not. The first one is my anger directed towards someone who has knowingly, intentionally, and unnecessarily attacked? Is my anger directed towards someone who has knowingly, intentionally, and unnecessarily acted in a harmful or hurtful manner? And the second one is my anger useful? Does it help me achieve the desired goal, or does it simply defeat me? I'm a pretty just angry person in general. I'm just very fucking angry. This is something that I should actually work on. This is something that kind of got better through actually meditating and through also kind of doing what I'm doing right now. I'm actually going through a lot of self-help books, going through a lot of books in general, getting more knowledge, getting more perspectives, getting more points of views for more people or of more people as possible, which just really creates, first of all, the perspective for yourself, why you shouldn't be angry, why you shouldn't be just sad, because a lot of people just have it way worse than you're having it. And on the other side, just actually also thinking about, okay, why I'm angry and why I'm just feeling this certain way, and questioning myself and just really recognizing, okay, I am now angry. Why am I angry? Can I change this up? Can I do something about it? Can I do it better for me? Do I want it to make better for me? And so on and so on and so on. So if you have a should or shouldn't rule that has causing you disappointment and frustration, rewrite it in more realistic terms. You will notice that the substitution of one word, "it would be nice if," in place of should, can be a useful first step. And this is actually a lot of people did just before, a lot of people did just before him, which was actually pretty much, replacing words. And this is just a very, very simple task. But I think what you're thinking and what you're therefore then also saying has a lot to do with how your life looks like and how your life will look like. Because the best example that I'm always having is, if you just tell yourself over and over and over again that you're a piece of shit, what will you think about you? You will think about you that you are actually a piece of shit, only because you're telling it you in terms of, actually your thoughts, or if you're actually just telling it you in terms of, looking in the mirror and telling it you. But at the end, you're just making yourself feel worse, at my point of view. And so therefore, just changing up things like "I'm not able to do this" with "I am not able to do this yet" is also one of these things that I've quite seen, relatively often, which, but at the other side is just also working. It makes sense. Nobody's good at anything. Nobody can do anything, or everything actually. But that doesn't mean that you will never be able to do this. It's just not in the now. You are not able to do it now. Who knows what's happening tomorrow? Who knows what's happening in the future? Who knows what's happening somewhere actually? So the rationale for eliminating your should statement is simple. It's not true that you are entitled to get what you want just because you want it. What does actually entitled mean? This is actually okay, never mind. So the rationale for eliminating, which doesn't make any sense, so the rationale for eliminating your should statement is simple. It's not true that you're entitled to get what you want just because you want it. It definitely makes sense. This is also something philosophical, but it makes sense. Remorse or regret are aimed at behavior, whereas guilt is targeted towards the self. Wow, what does guilt? The thing is with the guilt, if it's, it's not pretty accurately, yeah, definitely. Even though I do have to say that a lot of people just blame others a lot. And this is something, if you keep attention to, you see all the time and you hear all the time, which is just incredible how many people do just blame somebody because of something. And, at the end, actually, they are the ones that should be blamed because, they just made a mistake or, but the thing is, all people just think that they are in the right and they are just doing everything right at this time, but it isn't actually. Sadness is a normal emotion created by realistic perceptions that describe a negative event involving loss or disappointment in an undistorted way. Depression is an illness that always results from thoughts that are distorted in some way, which means, and I think this is just incredible that the author writes it down, and also the author of the summary just points it out as well, is that just because you're thinking negatively once, or just feeling bad once or maybe twice or 3 times, you will definitely feel bad sometimes in your life, and that's totally okay. Even Tony Robbins, he's just always speaking about being happy. He's always speaking about how to get the best out of yourself. He himself just feels bad sometimes as well, but he just knows how to kind of act on it and how you kind of should deal with it. And how he deals with it is just actually giving him 90 seconds, and in these 90 seconds he has to calm down and has to just get to the point of reality again, that he actually can see, okay, this is where he is, everything is quite fine, and just calm himself down, and yeah, so it's definitely okay. And this does not have, so it doesn't have anything to do with being mentally ill if you're just feeling bad once or whatever. This is total bullshit, but it makes sense that depression and really illnesses have to do with a distorted mind or a distorted cognitivity or cognitive functionality. So when a generally negative event occurs, your emotions will be created exclusively by your thoughts and perceptions. Your feelings will result from the meaning you attach to what happens. A substantial portion of your suffering will be due to the distortions in your thoughts. When you eliminate these distortions, you will find that coping with the real problem will become less painful. So a substantial portion of your suffering will be due to the distortions in your thoughts. So when you eliminate these distortions, which are the distortions that are named a bath, but you can totally just go to the samuelthomasdavis.com website and go check out this summary yourself, or you just look for the cognitive distortions on yourself. I think you will definitely find a little bit more and kind of be more educated than just going through this one, I think, or I assume. But it's, as I said, something like, you always see the negative, or if there is something negative, you just feel like it's so overwhelming, and so you're just boosting it up and you just make it feel like, it's just a monster, even though it's just like, really a bug. Although your distorted negative thoughts will be substantially reduced or entirely eliminated after you have recovered from a bout of depression, there are certain silent assumptions that probably still lurk in your mind. These silent assumptions explain in large part why you became depressed in the first place and can help you predict when you might again be vulnerable. Wow, this is something that might feel like, for people who had been just being depressed, or had being mentally ill, or felt mentally not that okay or not that healthy. It's just really sounds a little bit how should I say? My God, it's a little bit not confusing. It's not important, which is an adjective I always use, but it's something that you can fear some kind of, because if you just always think like, okay, this can happen then, this can happen at this time, and so on and so on and so on, this would drive you crazy, I think. A silent assumption is an equation with which you define your personal worth. It represents your value system, your personal philosophy, the stuff on which you base your self-esteem. So a silent assumption is an equation with which you define your personal worth. It represents your value system, your personal philosophy, the stuff on which you base your self-esteem. I think it's incredibly important that you have a value system that is actually working and that's some kind of good for you. Not like a value system that's, you're only valuing, or I think this has also something to do with quite preferences, to be honest. I won't say anything, because the thing is, people have different values. People have different just preferences, and it doesn't mean that I just want to say, okay, you just have to do this and that, but that's complete shit. Some people just want to do this, and some people just want to do that, and that's totally okay for me, and I shouldn't judge it. Nobody should judge it. You shouldn't judge it yourself. If it's just really disturbing you, and if it's just something that you don't like in yourself, then change it up. Do something else, but do not dwell, and do not judge yourself. It's just only you, and you can do anything, or you can change anything about you that you theoretically want. But what I also want to say is that, as long as you're happy, I'm totally okay with it, with whatever you're doing. Maybe not really. If you're just hurting other people, this is totally something that I'm not quite great with. This is just something that I feel like, okay, no, this doesn't have to be. Find another way to be happy. You do not have to hurt people, or maybe even kill people, or certain shitty things like this. It just hasn't to be like it. And the personal philosophy has a lot to do, especially with your value, what, pretty much your life looks like. This is just really the fundamental that determines that your life is looking like this or like that, and, whatever. So choose any activity, and instead of aiming for 100%, try for 80%, 60%, or 40%. Then see how much you enjoy the activity and how productive you become. I don't know why. It's kind of just pretty much is the opposite of everything that I learned and everything that I just, can think of or kind of believe in. But, it's always good to test out stuff. If it's in terms of advertising, if it's in terms of your business ideas, if it's in terms of your life, testing out stuff is, at my point of view, very important to just see, okay, this is something that is working, this is not working. This is something I like, this is something I don't like. This is something that's important to me, and this is something that's not important for me, and this is something that I kind of, value or prefer, and this is something that I'm not valuing or preferring or preferencing. But that's very important, because how should you know instead? I actually bought myself a book. I bought a book from Seth Godin. This is marketing. Why I did it, and it was a very, very complicated task of doing it. Not because I was just dumb and couldn't just click a button on Amazon, but because I was searching for the books themselves. I was searching for the books, and I was seeing, okay, which has the best value for the price? What should I actually read? And everything was kind of against this book that I'm reading, or this book that I actually bought myself. If it was the price, if it was actually the reviews of the book, if it was something else, just everything was against the price. The thing I actually think why I bought the book is because it's from Seth Godin, and I actually often quite came across certain books that were pretty much reviewed as so good books, and they all gave them 5 stars and whatever. But at the end I was like, the book was good, and there were certain insights that I quite liked, but I don't know, I didn't like the book, or I didn't get so much out of it as all the other people. This was really then the point where I decided, okay, I will just get it, and because I know, okay, Seth Godin has really the same thinking as I am having, so therefore I do not have the problem of just getting to know someone else, or just pretty much getting to know someone else who might actually have certain other values that I'm having, and just teaches me something else that I'm quite not believing in, and therefore it just would be hard for me to go through the book. But in terms of Seth Godin, I totally know that he's just thinking about things and or thinking the way that I'm thinking as well. So you are wrong in your belief that suicide is the only solution or the best solution to your problem. This is actually something that I've been thinking about in the other episode as well. The really quick explanation for me is that these people who are suicidal are actually just identifying less pain with dying than living. So they just think like, okay, just living is more pain than actually dying, which is one of the things you do just have to kind of let them recognize, or just let them know, okay, this is not the case. If you die, there is only one option, and you're somewhere and you do not know what's happening. But so there might be a few arguments. I'm not the best at it. I'm sorry. So when you think that you're trapped and hopeless, your thinking is illogical, distorted, and skewed. And that's totally true. And I think this is also something that happened to some people as well. So it happened to me definitely. And where everything feels like, it's, some kind of, I don't know what path I should go. I don't know what I should do, and all these things. But at the end, everything is okay, which is, always the case most of the time, fortunately. But often it is only because you're thinking in such a stupid way, in such a self-disrupting and self-disrupting way, nihilism is the belief that there is no truth or meaning to anything, and that all of life involves suffering and agony, which is something I heard about before, and this is also something I can't understand. Is it that people actually just want to be unhappy? Is it like this? I actually do feel like this, that some people just want to be unhappy, and this is also something that I thought in such or certain times of my life about myself as well, which I don't understand it. Nearly all suicidal patients have in common an illogical sense of hopelessness and the conviction they are facing an insolvable dilemma. Once you're exposed to distortions in your thinking, you will experience considerable emotional relief. This is actually the thing that I'm always talking about. If you actually recognize, if you actually understand that you have just, limiting beliefs in yourself, that you're just having, a distorted mind or distorted thinking in yourself, I think this just really creates the fundamental for you to really just, let things get better. And if you just truly understand it, and if you just know it, and if you also understand, okay, I'm feeling like this, and maybe you even know where it is from, and you therefore avoid certain places or avoid certain people that are harming you, or avoid certain patterns, and all these things. This just some kind of makes sense for me, and it's some kind of just looking too easy for me. I don't know. It's just feeling too easy. Just saying like, okay, you just have to recognize it. This is, I think, if you just think about certain things. And your whole life long, especially when you're pretty old, it is fucking impossible, nearly impossible. Now, impossible is a fucked up word. Nothing is impossible, but it's pretty fucking difficult to really change up your thinking, especially with when you're old. But I think if you're just young, everything is quite in a pretty much green place. So your feeling of hopelessness and total despair are just symptoms of this depressive illness, not facts. I let the following rule of thumb guide me: patients who feel hopeless never actually are hopeless. Isn't it like, always the thing that people always say, okay, I'm hopeless, but, at the end they just, manage it anyway, and, at the end everything is okay anyway, and, whatever. Yeah. Whatever. So this was actually the book, or the book summary. I think there was quite a lot in it. It was just a fairly new read, fairly something new that I haven't been stumbling across before, which is, always a great thing, especially in the self-help book world, in terms of finances and, in general non-fiction. You can definitely just learn a lot of things. It just depends on what books you pick or what genre you in this non-fiction genre itself you're choosing. But yeah, I quite actually liked it. So but yeah, the recommended reading is if you feel So if you like feeling good, you may also enjoy the following books: Awaken the China Within, How to Take Immediate Control of Your Mental, Emotional, Physical, and Financial Destiny by Anthony Robbins or Tony Robbins, The Happiness Advantage, The 7 Principles of Positive Psychology That Fuel Success and Performance at Work by Sean Aker, and Notes from a Friend by Anthony Robbins, or Tony Robbins again, which is actually a book that I want to go through as well. And Awaken the Child Within is a book, and The Happiness Advantage is also a book. So both of them I've been talking about on my channel and or podcast, wherever you're on right now. And so I unfortunately haven't just titled them in a certain way or just put it in the description, because this was actually the time and space where just for just taking the time for actually doing the description and making it kind of, first of all, look good and make everything actually work, especially the links. And, I didn't do this in this time for this is unnecessary, but it isn't. It's good for your SEO, it's good to just actually find your videos, and it's good for your community to actually see, okay, this is not a book, but a video about this and that, and or a podcast episode about this and that, and therefore I just decide whether I want to go through it or I'm not going to go through it. So yeah, but I think this is the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it talking today, or at least on a later part. I wasn't doing that great. It's always in terms of what I'm doing today. I especially feel it when I'm talking a lot in German on one certain day. I quite feel like that my English isn't doing that well, but especially in the weekends where I do just quite not as much as especially not as much as during the week speak German, because actually I just get up and basically eat something for breakfast, and then I'm sitting in front of my computer and working pretty much the whole day long until I most of the time just then have to take the train. But yeah, I think this was it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I do hope that you get your happiness, your wealth, your health, your success. But do not forget about giving back to other people. This is important. And do not forget about your legacy as well. With that being said, I hope you have a very beautiful day, and I love you.